Welcome to a Subject To Blackout podcast. Welcome to Subject To Blowout. This is a podcast about Northwestern football. Ladies and gentlemen, your one, your only, Go You Northwestern!
Hello and welcome to the inaugural Subject To Blowout Northwestern Football Podcast. My name is, as you know, Timo, and this is a little bit different than what I usually do on the main broadcast with Mike. But I am a passionate fan of Northwestern football, and I have decided that I wanted to do a podcast focusing on both that passion and the football team. We're going to do some different things here than we do on the normal Subject To Blackout podcast. We're going to have guests come on and some guest hosts, hopefully, and just talk a little bit about Northwestern, give myself a place to vent, and hopefully have people join in the conversation, both online and maybe with the pod. This week, later in the episode, we're going to be talking to an old friend of mine from college, Matt Lenard. He is a Michigan State fan. He's going to give us the lowdown about old Sparty coming into the season. Obviously, last year, the Spartans dealt a very significant loss to Northwestern. And we talk about both that game a little bit and what we think is going to happen this season with both of our teams. So enjoy that in the second half of the pod. But up first, I just wanted to sort of give my bona fides, if you will. I've been going to Northwestern games since before I can remember. It was a family tradition. My father actually went to Northwestern, graduated in 1974, and was a big influence on both my life in general and my sports fandom. I think that I find my loyalty is either something that has endeared me to Northwestern or something that perhaps I just learned from rooting for a team that was as bad as they were in the early 90s. Of course, 1995 happened and that changed the game. That was the first year we didn't have season tickets in many years, regrettably. But we saw what they did down in South Bend and got as many game tickets as we could. And what a season that was. I mean, that season and the following one, some of the strongest memories I have of watching television as a child. And the couple games that we were able to attend in 95. 96, back on the season ticket bandwagon. And while I eventually ended up going to college at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, my passion for Northwestern did not stop. Me and my folks stopped getting season tickets when I was in college. But as soon as I moved back home after getting my degree, the Northwestern season tickets picked right back up, and honestly have never looked back since. Obviously, last year being 2020, we also were not able to attend any games. But my family has traveled far and wide to see the Wildcats play. We've seen them play in Hawaii. We've been to several bowl games in Florida. We have been to see them play ASU, I would say probably 10, 15 years ago. I have seen them play at both Wrigley Field, which I will see again this year against Purdue, and at Soldier Field when they played I believe in 1986 when they played in the Pigskin Classic against Oklahoma, I want to say. We've traveled to lesser desirable places such as Detroit. And my dad and I over the last couple of years have started traveling to different Big Ten universities, including 2 years ago to Michigan State. And we have had a lot of fun doing that. We've been to Michigan State and to Wisconsin. And we're looking to continue those trips probably in 2022. Probably going to skip a trip this year with the COVID situation. But, Wildcat fever is runs deep in my family, and it's something, especially my dad and I are very passionate about. But my brother and sister both follow the team. My mom obviously goes to games with us, but follows the team. So we over the years have learned quite a bit about Northwestern football, about what to expect and what not to expect, and that leads us into what to expect from the 2021-22 season. Uh, as you'll hear later on when I'm talking with Matt Lenard, I'm not terribly excited about the offensive prospects this season. Unfortunately, there's been some injuries at running back, and Hunter Johnson was named the starter after the camp competition at that position. Uh, Andrew Marty and Ryan Helinski are going to be his backups this year, and after what I saw from Hunter Johnson a couple seasons ago when he was named the starter, and quickly that fell apart. I don't want to put that all on him. I think that was a lot. The offensive scheme certainly not helping his limited skill set, but hopefully he's grown as a player. Last year with Peyton Ramsey taking over the position, former Indiana player, that really solidified it. Peyton Ramsey was by no means a game winner or a game changer, and I also think that the Mike Bajakian offense has yet to prove that it's what Northwestern needs. I still am of the opinion that Northwestern needs a more dynamic, I wouldn't say gimmicky, but a less common offense when you're recruiting at the level Northwestern is. And it's getting better every year. And that is kudos to Pat Fitzgerald and the entire recruitment staff and athletic department at Northwestern. But I think when you recruit at the level that Northwestern does, and you're going to struggle to make anything other than incremental progress there, you really, in my mind, have to develop an offense that is going to catch people off guard. And that's, explosive plays. That's a little bit of trickeration every once in a while. It's the sort of thing that Gary Barnett brought to the offense. Gary Barnett did pretty much your typical sort of focus on running the ball, good blocking, and then using the pass when it opens up. But then you also had Randy Walker come in and really help revolutionize the spread offense in both the college and eventually the professional game. And I think Big Ten teams had a hard time coming to Northwestern and dealing with like the Brett Bazinet led teams in the early 2000s, in part because it was just an offense that they weren't used to seeing. And I think that's why you look at some of the more dynamic, more interesting offenses being run across college football in the last few years, like Oklahoma State. You're seeing teams that are spreading the ball from sideline to sideline truly and still being able to run out of it. And I think there's a place at Northwestern for an offense like that. That clearly to me is not what Mike Bajakian is going to bring. But his first season was okay. It was okay to decent. But I'm looking for growth from both Hunter Johnson this year and from the offense in general. I think there's quite a few returning seniors on that offense. And yeah, you do have some pretty young talent at some offensive positions. But I think Peter Skoronsky held his own last year when put into a position of high demand on him personally at left tackle, and being a sophomore, I think he's only going to get better, hopefully. Where I'm not concerned is on the defensive side of the ball. And yes, Northwestern lost talent on both sides of the ball. There's no question about that. When you have 2 first-round draft picks for the first time, whatever, you're obviously losing some very talented players. But on defense, you're returning some really excellent stars. And if there's one thing that Pat Fitzgerald has been able to consistently do in his tenure, it's win games for the most part. He does have some up and down seasons, but also just coach a really solid defense. So that's not one of my concerns. Going into this Michigan State game, I think there's a lot of unknowns. I think, losing your presumptive starting running back is not ideal. You have a graduate senior transfer. Andrew Clare is going to be the backup to the sophomore Evan Hall, who I believe saw some action last year. And, it's going to be interesting. I think the Michigan State game is actually a pretty good first game of the season to open up with. It's going to be under the lights. There's going to be that pressure, and there's going to be that revenge factor for what Michigan State did to Northwestern last year up in East Lansing. But Michigan State is, as far as we know, not a very good team. And I think that they still have the, obviously, the athletic talent level of any Big Ten team. And so you can't just take it on face value that Northwestern is going to walk in there and make a difference. But I think, having a Big Ten team who is maybe in the process of changing regimes, year two of a new coach, you're still not going to have seniors who fully bought in perhaps to his system. So I don't know what the offense is going to look like. I don't trust Hunter Johnson yet. And there's some positions, especially wide receiver, running back, and some of your offensive line where it's just unproven talent. So it could go either way. So I don't think this week is going to be a high scoring game by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm looking forward to it very much. It's been a long time since we've been back to a game. And I'm hoping that Northwestern can pull this one out and get a nice victory at home before they go into non-conference play and go 1-0 in the Big Ten. And that's the first step in hopefully another successful season up in Evanston. Go 1-0 every week and see where that gets you. Right now, Northwestern just outside the top 25 in both the AP and coaches poll. So hopefully a little statement win, maybe a little revenge game against Michigan State. And hopefully you can jump up into that top 25, get the respect I think this team deserves. And like I said, move on to the non-conference schedule from there and try to build some steam going into the second half of the season. So looking forward to it, but right now I'm looking forward to my conversation with Matt Lenard, and here he is. All right, joining me now is an old friend of mine. We actually met in college at Indiana University, is Matthew Lenard, or as we like to call him, Len. Len, how are you doing?
Hey, Tim, thanks for letting me join today. I am doing pretty well. Can't complain.
I'm very excited to have you on. It's been a long time since we talked, and so this is an excellent excuse to catch up with you. But I, like I just said, we went to Indiana together, and we both had a thing in common, was that we were not fans of Indiana football before we got to Indiana, and that's why I bring you on for this inaugural Northwestern episode, is because I grew up a Northwestern fan, and you grew up a Michigan State fan. Would you like to talk about maybe how you got into Michigan State?
That's a good question. So growing up, my entire side, my dad's side of the family went to Michigan State. So I was kind of, just a steady dose of Michigan State football and basketball growing up, whether it was good or bad, and mainly bad for a lot of those times. So that's kind of how I got the baseline for Michigan State football.
Hey, that sounds a lot like how I experienced Northwestern. Now, in recent years, you and I have both, I've actually traveled to Michigan State without you, but I traveled to Michigan State to take in a game in their fantastic stadium on their beautiful campus. And I've actually had you and your girlfriend to a Northwestern game, which I believe was the coldest game we've ever been to. And you guys hated it, but were so polite that you refused to just leave. And my parents were like, they don't have to stay. We can go.
the coldest game on record. I think the biggest problem was we did not have enough to drink beforehand. That was our
That is
mistake,
true.
not yours.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, we were definitely far too sober for like a high of 7 or whatever it was.
I think I still got a picture of Anya in the tunnel with a blanket on, just
yes.
chattering.
That picture is just permanently in my head. I think my parents still feel bad about taking you to that game. But so we've both experienced this rivalry, if you'll call it that, which it's absolutely not. But Michigan State is headed up to Evanston on Friday for what is basically for Michigan State every single year, an extra home game just north of Chicago. So this year, Northwestern has a bit of, let's just say, a reason to make Michigan State hurt. Last year, Michigan State was before the Big Ten championship game, the lone loss that Northwestern suffered, in the brief 2020 season. And I got to be real honest, things broke in my house that night. Objects and my spirit. I was sipping the Northwestern Kool-Aid. I just wanted to be in the conversation for the college football playoff. And Northwestern fucked it up, and Michigan State, to their credit, played a much better game, much cleaner game, and came out with what is a signature win for a young coach. That's how I took it. How did you take it?
Oh, Tim, I felt bad for you that day. That Michigan State team was an atrocity last year, and there's no way around that, unfortunately. I mean, they were put in a tough spot with the COVID crisis, not allowing any spring football, so you never knew what you were going to get into. But last season's Spartan team was terrible. I was actually rooting for you guys to win that game just because I know how infrequently both of our teams climb to the top of the pinnacle there. So
yeah. Fortunately, Northwestern still scrapped it together and got to the Big Ten championship game, where hopefully a future NFL Hall of Famer, Justin Fields, didn't have a great game, but had a good enough game to beat Northwestern's piddling offense. So it was a good season last year. I thought it was a great game last year, despite my pure rage about the outcome of that game. But I was actually looking, apparently the ESPN's Power Football Index is giving Northwestern a 60% chance of winning this game. And they're also, that same FPI index is giving Northwestern 7.7 wins this season. So they're bullish on the Wildcats, who've lost a legendary defensive coordinator and some starters on both sides of the ball. But what are you thinking about this year for Michigan State?
I think this is a great time for a podcast today because realistically, both of our teams have so many question marks, coming into this season. You losing a quarterback to the NFL. If I correct me, if
he's
I'm wrong,
somewhere.
Is he?
I don't know if he's somewhere after the cut down to the 53-man rosters, but Peyton Ramsey, he's out there.
While he is out there, I did do a little deep dive there, and I saw that he got invited to like a Bengals practice. I don't know if he got, and so I don't know.
He was catering the practice, so.
So was there some writing on the wall that this, Clemson transfer was going to kind of take over this year? Or?
So that's the thing is Hunter Johnson, who was announced as the starter, not exactly thrilled about, because he was announced as a starter 2 seasons ago when Northwestern had one of their worst years under Pat Fitzgerald. And he struggled mightily. And I was not the biggest fan of the offensive coordinator at the time. In fact, I hated his guts. But I think Hunter Johnson struggled mightily. I think the fall from Clemson became obvious once he got on the field at Northwestern. To me, it was clear he was probably a little bit overrated when in the scouting process, and that's not his fault. That I like to separate the player from the person, sure. And the player certainly did not live up to the hype of, oh, we're getting a Clemson transfer. So he struggled that year, and then last year Peyton Ramsey came over from Indiana and really shored up that position. He was good, not great, and that's kind of all you needed with Northwestern's defense last year. So it was an open competition, and Pat Fitzgerald and his new offensive coordinator from last year, Mike Bajakian, decided that this was the man for this season. So I trust that they know what they're doing, but I don't have high hopes after seeing him 2 years ago.
Yeah. If we're looking at Michigan State, there are quite a few transfers that left the program and came in this year. So with this being the coach's kind of first year with spring practices and whatnot, there are a lot of question marks on both sides of the ball. So we lost quite a few players, and I mean, they brought in kind of the same ilk of transfer. So we're bringing in 4 stars that had trouble at Alabama, Auburn, Florida, but again, there's a reason they're transferring out of their previous school. So you're kind of trying to temper those expectations along with meshing those individuals into a new program. I think they're going to have some very ugly games this year. I think they're probably going to win a few that they shouldn't. And if they make a bowl game, I think Michigan State realistically can say they've have a win on the season. So I think that's where I would put their benchmark for 2021.
And what do you think about the head coach there at Michigan State?
Mel Tucker, I would say the jury's out on him. Last year they looked pretty bad. Let's just cut to that chase. And again, we can make excuses about how they had no practices and really had a no win situation coming into the season. They did end up beating Michigan, but Michigan, we all saw what they looked like by the end of the season. So that wasn't really a win. And they did have that good game with Northwestern. Ideally, Tucker probably wasn't my number one option as far as a coach, but I do understand that he has ties to the school, and so I know kind of where they were coming from with that. It's hard for me to put much stock in a coach that comes from a middling program after just 1 year. So
yeah.
I think he was like 7-6 at Colorado or something like that. So I don't know where that allure was outside of just being an alum.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, and you want to believe that knowing the program, knowing the college, you're going to bring something that an outsider can't necessarily bring. That's a lot of what media hoists upon Pat Fitzgerald is like, oh, he's a program guy, he's a Northwestern guy, he's a lifer. But I think what that diminishes is that he's a really excellent coach. And he surrounds himself with other excellent coaches. And I think if Mel Tucker can be the rah-rah program guy, as well as surrounding himself, and I don't know what his expertise is. I don't know Mel Tucker all that well. But if he can influence one side of the ball or the other and surround himself with some quality talent in the coaching position, I think that's where people have a path to succeed. Oftentimes you see these, Nebraska will hire some like wonderkind who's the next guy, or USC hires the next guy. Oh, this guy's going to be Texas. How many times has Texas hired a coach since Mac Brown? Exactly. Where you're like, this guy's it, finally. And they're just not, because for whatever reason, it just doesn't work. So Mel Tucker to me, as an outsider to the Michigan State program, it seems like, kind of like what you said, the jury's very much still out. But I wouldn't be surprised if someone like him might have some success there and build that program back up to where it belongs. But also, I've thought that 1,000 times about 1,000 coaches, so we'll see how that goes.
And just to be fair, I mean, the cupboard was left pretty dry at the end of the last coaching
for sure
regime. So it's tough as a fan to want to give somebody time, but I think in all, just to be realistic and fair to him, that we probably need to wait a couple years to really see where he takes it.
So what are your hopes for this season for Michigan State? Is it pretty much just bowl game would be success in your eyes?
Oh, bowl game success. I mean, they have some, really lightweights on the schedule. They also have Miami as a non-conference team, which I wouldn't expect that they win. But again, you have Maryland, you have Rutgers. I look at the Northwestern game as a winnable game.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, especially this early in the season, it's always tough to tell who's going to be good in college football aside from the couple powerhouses. Um, a different position here, a different player in a position there, and that can make or break your season. So, yeah, I mean, rightfully, I fear Michigan State. I think Northwestern is the better team. I thought they were the better team last year too, and Michigan State outplayed Northwestern. So, it doesn't matter. It's who gets up for game day. I think there are a bunch of seniors on this Wildcat team who are real upset about
Sure.
what happened in that game.
Definitely have the motivational factor coming in,
Yes, very much so. But it's about, can you maintain that composure? Can you harness that energy as opposed to getting like stupid penalties because you're just mad? So we'll see how that goes. Len, would you like to remember a Wildcat?
Yes.
Len, do you remember Anthony Walker?
Ooh, yes. Yes, I do.
Former Indianapolis Colt, current Cleveland Brown, Anthony Walker. You have any thoughts?
Is he on the show next? Is he coming in after me?
Not quite. No, I was thinking of Wildcats that you might remember, who would have been influential on both, maybe against Michigan State or maybe in the pros. And then I remembered Ant Walker. He's on the Colts, right? And I found out today, no, he is a Cleveland Brown. He was on the Colts.
Yeah, he was. He was great for them. Gosh, as far as Northwestern memories, I try to black out everything after that game where it was 6 degrees when we were outside. So unless it's a Michigan State
that is fair
game,
enough.
I try to zone it out.
All right. Well, would you like to remember a Spartan?
Why not? Let's do it. Who do you have for me?
This is another person where I don't have many memories of them specifically as a MSU Spartan, but I do remember this man fondly for years, Paul Edinger.
Ooh, that is a blast from the past.
Right?
That is a good one.
I was looking up who played in the NFL from Michigan State, and then all of a sudden, Paul Edinger, the kicker who faced away from the field goal when he was lining up. And I was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I that guy, he was probably the Bears kicker for 4 or 5 years. And then I think he bounced around the league for a couple more.
You never knew where he was looking before that kick. You're right. I expected you to come up with a skill position player there, but not a kicker. I am excited though.
Well, was Paul Edinger as influential to the Michigan State Spartans as he was to the Bears?
I would say that they've had some pretty good kickers over the years. So, he's been pretty influential. He was probably near the beginning of what I would say is a pretty, I don't know if it's a long line, but they've had some pretty above average kickers over the last decade or so.
Setting the trend out there.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think we've gotten to the point where it's time to predict what we think is going to happen Saturday. I'll let you go first.
Saturday or Friday? Friday night.
I'm sorry. Friday night. I'm not used to this college football thing again.
I hope nobody from my work is listening because I will be tailgating early and often Friday.
I will be up at the game myself.
My prediction: it's going to be an ugly game. There are going to be quite a few penalties because there's going to be a lot of new people on both sides of the ball for both teams. I do predict Michigan State to win. It's going to be low 20s, 21-17.
Fair enough. And, like I said, it is always a Michigan State home game. I would be shocked if it isn't that again. Early on in a season where Northwestern is very unknown, could be lead the Big Ten West again, could be at the bottom of the barrel. Pat Fitzgerald doesn't always put two good seasons together necessarily. So I think the Cats win this one. I think you're right. This is going to be a low-scoring game. I don't think these offenses are particularly well-stocked.
Polished.
Yes. Whatever adjectives you would like to use, I don't think they're
applicable.
very good. Yeah. I think this one, I think Northwestern's defense is just at a different level than their offense, and I think that'll be the difference. I think Northwestern probably gets a couple turnovers, maybe 2 or 3, especially if they try to test our secondary. But I think this one goes down about 17-10 Northwestern.
Hey, as long as it's close, I think it'll be a fun one. We'll both have some new quarterbacks to be interested in. So either way, I'm sure I'll have a few drinks and have some fun.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it, and may the best team win.
Always a pleasure, Tim. Good luck on Friday, buddy.
Thanks for joining me, Len.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Well, I just want to thank Matt Lenard for joining me again. He's a close personal friend, like I said, and I wish him and Michigan State the best of luck this season after Friday. So hopefully, like I said, Northwestern gets that W, and thanks again, Matt, for joining me on the podcast. I appreciate you all listening to this, and hopefully we can do more of this throughout the season with a few twists and turns and surprises along the way. I'm sure the Cats will provide some themselves. All right, I just want to thank you guys for listening along. You can head over to subjecttoblackout.com as always to reach out to us. But there you can also find links to all of our socials, including Instagram, Patreon, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. You can head over there to rate, review, and subscribe. And I just want to thank you for joining me. All right, go Cats.